Hi guys and welcome. This is Jen Gaeta Siciliano, artist, memoir writer, bipolar psychiatric survivor, and your host of Not As Crazy As You Think podcast, the place that offers an alternative perspective on mental illness, highlighting creativity, non-conventional healing, and breaking on through to the other side. If you are ready for a new narrative on the mental realm that celebrates crazy and cool without penalty, then Not As Crazy As You Think is for you. Hello, this is Jen Gaeta Siciliano, your host of Not As Crazy As You Think podcast. I have a very special guest with us. I am thrilled that she could make it and give her time and her wisdom to us. She's an extraordinary woman, a best-selling author, keynote speaker, and founder of the Receiving School. Her name is Patty Lennon. And she describes herself as a former type A corporate banker that discovered there was more to living than making money. She left banking to help others do the same. She's a certified coach with a master's in psychology and has been featured in Forbes, Fast Company, and Daily Worth. She blends brain science and metaphysics to help her fellow humans find clarity, focus, and inspiration so they can easily manifest their dreams into reality. Patty, thank you so much for joining us. It's such a thrill to have you.
Oh my goodness. I am so excited to be talking to you. So, yes.
Well, let me start with saying that Patty and I have a history together. And the thing is, I kept thinking about it. Like, how long were we in touch and hanging out? And it wasn't even that long, but it was such a small school. We both went to Catholic high school together for 1 year. And then we did theater together that second year at another Catholic high school. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was very interesting because Patty was always this just joyful and explosive energy. And you always had a happy, funny thing to say. And I always said to somebody, whenever you would walk onto the scene and then walk away, I'd be like, you know what? She just makes me smile. I'm just so happy to have her around. Truly. So you just wore that kind of lightness and made everybody feel happy. But when I got to reading your book, which is Make Space for Magic, Learn to Receive Love, Abundance, and Support from the Universe, I didn't realize that some of that way about you ended up being something of not an obstacle, but something that you had to learn to let go of in terms of resistance. So why don't you talk a little bit firstly about, your background and how it led you into that first half of your life, which was pretty corporate, and then how things changed after that.
Okay, well, we can talk about that, but before we do, I'm going to tell your listeners, I don't know who you've had on the show before that knew you back when I knew you, but so there we were, freshmen in all girls Catholic high school, coming from all Catholic grammar school. And if you managed to get to the high school we went to together, you probably had some ability to conform, right? Because it was there was an entrance exam and you had to get into this particular school. So coming in, there's the threshold. But Jen, she was the cool chick.
Really?
And
is that how you viewed it?
Yes, totally. And not just cool, but Jesus cool.
Oh my gosh.
So none of us were at the point where we were rebelling against our religion or seeing it as anything other than our uniforms. But Jen was drawing Jesus quotes onto her white kids. And Jen was just making everything her own, where the rest of us were just trying to keep our head above the water and fit in as much as possible.
Wow.
And Jen, as soon as you told me you were leaving our high school to go to public high school, because we commuted to high school. So Jen and I used to have to go on the train. We walked and then we got on a train and then we walked some more. And so then she was going back to the town we lived in.
Yes.
And you were going to that public school and I begged my parents to let me go. I was going to follow you there. Yes. I adored you. I adored you. But a child pulled a knife on my parents when they went to visit the high school I know, which you know how safe the high school is. It's so unusual that that would have happened, right?
Wow.
And they said, absolutely not. You're not leaving. So that our ways, we went in two different directions. But anyway, I just had to say, starting off that like, we can get into all my story now, but like, yeah, I loved you. You were my first person that told me that the rules didn't always have to be followed, and you could still be a good person and not be approved of all the time. So you were the very first friend that showed me that, Joe.
This is shocking to me because, I mean, it's not shocking now being in this space with you because, I'm sitting in memories and I'm looking at you and I'm feeling like it was yesterday. You know what I mean? Because we were all very close. Mm-hmm. It was such a tiny place, and it was like that was my everyday, and exactly how you described it, that was part of our routine, and that was like such a fabric of my life, and that really helped me get through that school. And I did like the school, but I guess I was looking for that experience, that traditional high school experience. But what you say is very interesting to me at this time in my life, because I had a very crazy life. And it didn't go in the way I wanted it to go. Now it's coming back full circle, which is a beautiful thing. And I think that's why I'm rediscovering your work, because you are like, I'm telling you, I was in tears over this certain areas of this book. And I was just like, oh my God, this is like clearly the thing that I need to be taking part in right now. So please share. Okay. You have so much to say.
So actually, Jen, you and I were very similar when we were the same, like when we first met, in that, and we can talk about where you got to with this, but we both loved Jesus a lot, like beyond our Catholic, because we were raised that way. We both loved Jesus, and we thought Jesus was like a cool dude. Right. And so early on in life, I thought my career was going to be helping people know Jesus, and not like a preacher, just like the idea of people not knowing Jesus really kind of was scary to me, or just unusual. So that when I was a young person, like really young, that's what I thought I was going to do. By the time I left high school, I had planned to be a senator, and like, yeah, it's a little bit different, but still it was because I saw that there were people who weren't served fully, and I wanted to serve them. And I had a whole path. I was going to be a public defender. For you listening, by the way, if you're not Catholic, I just want you to know I have a much more expansive view of spirit. And so don't think this is all being funneled through a very like old Christian philosophy. So I went to, I was pre-law in college, and I got an internship with the public defender's office. And by the way, I was a truly white conservative Catholic all through college. Okay. And I was working in the public defender's office, because this is going to sound very liberal, and at the time I wasn't.
Right.
And I'm working in the public defender's office. It was a really good internship. Like, it was a very competitive internship. It was like, I was amazed that I got it, and I was so happy. And all of a sudden through that year, I came to understand how our legal system really worked, and it broke my heart. And I realized that the things that the people who were inside the prison system needed, that would have been so simple to give them, they didn't get. And all the money and bullshit that was spent in keeping them in line, like, it just blew my mind. And so my heart was broken. I left high school, college, 93, terrible job market, lucked out, got a temp job, happened to be at a bank. They liked my work ethic, offered me a job. My parents want me to have health benefits. So I took it, but I thought I was just there until I figured out what I wanted to do. Right. And 15 years later, was still working there. And during that time, really, like, my type A-ness really just found a home, because it's very easy to succeed in corporate banking. If you're a people pleaser, that's a good student, that easily sucks up, that has no issue. Like, you're different than me on that, Jen. Like, you never would have like been okay there, but I thrived. Like, give me a set of rules and a goal, and I am like, so I really thrived. And then towards the end of that time there, ended up really questioning if this is what God wanted for me. It was like my whole 20s, I just spent being crazy, partying, going for success, and then got to the end of that period and was just like, wait, is this really what God put me? Oh yeah, wait, I remember when I was young, I used to give a shit what God might have thought of me.
Right.
And so that took me on a different path.
Well, it's very interesting because, first of all, I find it fascinating because to hear that you went into banking and to hear how it all happened and that you changed ways, because, my ex, who's my son's father, and I'm friends with him still, very good friends. He he was a banker. So I grew up, I mean, I had a whole marriage inside that banking world, me being so opposite that, and also me seeing that, he wasn't happy. He's still in it. He's still in banking. And so I saw that energy. You know what I mean? I understand that kind of type A thing going on, and to see that you shifted. And I will say that when I rediscovered you, or because I got off Facebook, I had like a little bit of a, I need a social media cleanse. I was really, really in it and plugged into everybody of our past. And then I was like, you know what? If people want to follow me, I'll go to another platform, but I got to get off this Facebook. So, but I had followed you and kept after you on Instagram and whatnot. And the thing is, what I noticed is that you did break out. You did break out, and you started doing this like entrepreneurial work, which was fascinating, because then I saw you started like speaking to all these like so many people in a room, and I was like, she is something else. So I was following you for a little bit, but it wasn't until I discovered that you had gifts that you started sharing and talking about. And at the point at which I realized that, I was like, I was starting to come out with that too. And certainly, my whole situation, I was labeled, I was, it's like if you took our two lives and you put them side by side, and the fact that we had similar starting points is very interesting too. And then just say, okay, well, you're going to be supported and you're going to be labeled and told that you're a mental case for the same kind of, types of things. That's where I was like, oh my God, I have to get in touch with Patty, because, it was like calling to me. I felt like a person like you, knowing me from my past, and then having, kind of like connected to that energy. So I guess what one of the things I want to talk about early on is, how did you realize that you had these gifts?
So I had that come to Jesus moment in banking, and where it took me was a mentor inside the bank who was very spiritual pointed out to me that you can be the light of God anywhere you are. You can hold the light of love no matter where you are. And in fact, how did I know that, the divine didn't want me being a good person inside the bank? And maybe that's why I was there, right? And the more I looked at my career through that lens, I started to focus less and less on helping our clients make money. I always did it, and I was happy to do it. I actually loved banking. But where I saw success being like getting to the next level and next level and next level, all of a sudden it shifted to helping the next person and the next person and the next person get ahead inside the bank. And my focus just shifted. And in that process, I realized I wanted to move into an executive leadership team that focused on that. And I convinced my boss to let me get a master's in psychology. So they paid for that.
Nice.
Banking then started to go downhill. This was going into 2007. And I realized that department was going to go away very quickly. So at the time, coaching was emerging. I started working with Martha Beck, who's a coach. And at the time, she was just starting to certify people. So there was very few of us. And I ended up out in a desert retreat with her and the other coaches. And in the middle of that retreat, all of a sudden I just started to know things about people. And it was literally a switch. Like, I had not had these gifts my whole life up until that point. And then suddenly I did. And at first I was very tentative. And like you talked about, like seeing me on social media, I went out on this entrepreneur thing. I had the gifts at that point. I kept them very quiet. They made me a good coach because I would know things. And so it helped me guide. Like I could always, what I didn't realize at the time, I didn't have words for, were my clients' spirit guides were telling me, go here with them, or take them here, or take them there. But I wasn't telling them that was happening.
Right.
But then I went through a process of my mom getting sick and her dying, and me taking care of her through 3 years of cancer, my husband losing his job. So we had 2 kids. My husband was out of work for 2 years. And I was taking care of my mother. And by the time she died, when you lose someone significant, all of a sudden, a lot of the bullshit you've been holding that you think is important, and like people you think deserve your time, and others who you haven't gotten to, and projects that didn't make it to the top of the list, and other ones that did, everything starts to get reordered.
Yeah.
And it honestly was just too hard to not tell anyone anymore.
Wow.
And so I just started to be much more forward in the social media and on this, from the stages and, where I was speaking. And so that's what that journey looked like. But it was, it took time. It wasn't instant. And I would say it was definitely through my mother's cancer that my gifts became strongest, because she came to rely on them and she needed them.
Yeah.
And the risk reward balance changed significantly, because giving her 1 ounce of peace would have been worth any risk to my ego or my reputation.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, did you find that those admissions to, the larger public that you were involved in, coaching and everything, were there any criticisms or resistance to this?
Let's see. I'm sure there was, but I am to this day a pragmatic. So I never needed anyone to believe any of this. This was not something where I offered it and I was like, oh, hello, I'm a psychic medium. It was not the forward facing message of my brand.
Right.
And when I did have doubters, it was interesting to me because I love data points. The place that I've gotten to is when I teach people about any of this, whether it's manifestation or receiving, divine communication or talking to your loved ones. When I teach from process. So I've watched and I've studied data points. I've collected data points. So it's never about, oh, I have decided something. Now I will teach it. It's, I have decided something. I will now teach it to a small group. I will study it. I will see the consistencies. I was still a good student, even of these gifts. Mm-hmm. So if someone was pragmatic, or cynical, I was fine with that because it almost cleaned all my ego out of it. And so almost like the messages they got through me were even more detailed and significant, because my reason for this is, like everything, is I just want people to know how much the divine loves them.
Right.
And so for me, it never mattered if they believed me, but it did matter to me if they walked away from me believing that they mattered more in the world.
Yes.
And so I think the criticism that might have been out there, or the doubters, they just were irrelevant, know, and certainly at the time I was business coaching, it really was my USP, my unique selling proposition. There was this person that they had come to know as this like marketing person and this salesperson. And now she's also a psychic. Like, this brings next level shit to the table.
Exactly. And I'm telling you, from an outsider's point of view, who knows how your personality type and also the goodness of your soul. And, where I could tell it was so pure where you were coming from it. And I was just like, this is it. This is going to rock it. Because see, on my end, people who are like kind of, on the fringe, of society, and we're working it like, all the classic people on the outside of, the norm. It's part of the course. You're always like being different. But with you, because of that pragmatism and how you were as a human being, to marry it with this, it was like total next level, because I haven't seen it done like that. Most people who are coming at it have somehow gotten comfortable with an alternative lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? But with you, it was like you were still just you know what I mean? You're on the conservative side, right? I mean, more or less pragmatic.
Yeah.
And it was so great, because here I'm rooting for the guides to come through. You know what I mean? I'm rooting for the ancestors. I'm just like, oh my God, this is just so wonderful, because here we go. The truth is the truth. The reality of the other side is the reality of the side. Whether or not people can access it, I guess where I'm coming from is I feel like a lot of people who are resistant to this type of thing tend to look at the people who are usually delivering the message and decide if they can relate to them or not. Yeah. And if they're that much outside of the box, people who might be a little intimidated by people outside of the box are still good people. I'm not judging them in that way. It's just that I feel like you delivering the message to them can make so much more of an impact. Do you find that in some of the people that come to you?
Yes, I do, because I think I say my people are woo curious.
Yes.
So they think the woo exists. And it's not that they question whether God or divine or universe exists. I mean, I think you have to have a basis of faith, or else I'm not sure a lot of this even can land. But they think either manifestation works for some people, just not for them, but they're curious about it. Maybe they've done a vision board, and then they've got maybe they've gone for a palm reading or a tarot card reading, or even they go every year on their birthday. But, how to integrate it into a regular practice to them feels foreign, right? But they're curious about it. And so that really feels like more who comes to my message. And then what I feel like my gift is, one is I'm just as cynical as you are, not you, Jen, because you've never been a cynic, but for that person, you don't have to defend your cynicism to me, girl. I can hold it for you. And so let me walk you on the journey and take you. And I do think the fact that I was a corporate banker, that I succeeded in a global bank, that I have a master's in psychology, that I have the brain science, does help people's whose brains are still and really what it is their brains are just in such an extended fight or flight system, right? Their stress systems are just constantly going.
Yeah.
And so the space for all of this to come in, manifestation, to, spirit communication, it can only come in when your brain is actually at rest. And so a lot of those doubters, just their lifestyle doesn't even allow for it. And so I think I do help people see the midpoint isn't isn't buying a muumuu and a crystal ball.
Right.
The midpoint is taking a day off of work without apology.
Yes. Well, it's incredible. And I really commend you for everything that you're doing. I think it's terrific. One of the things that you bring up in a lot of your work is how important it is to feel. Okay. Yeah. And, you mentioned that there are destructive psychological and emotional effects when we try to suppress natural negative emotions. And that doesn't lead to mental health. So one of the things I talk about a lot on this show is how the field of psychiatry, not psychology, in psychiatry, they have an obsession with labeling people and pathologizing the normal human experience with experiencing emotions. And one of the things I just mentioned recently in a podcast was the fact that now just came out in a couple of months ago on the updated version of the DSM. They have now prolonged grief disorder. Now, this is if you don't get over a death within a year, you can get this pathological label. Now, you delve into your book a lot about the grieving experience, about the saying goodbye experience. You've spoken so much about the last days of your mother and your father. I mean, in learning that he was passed. This whole thing that you share is so deep and and honest. And I just felt like I was blown away because, I've had, through my personal experiences, I've had issues with estrangement with my mother. So I feel, and she's still alive. So, I'm feeling like your words definitely needed to hit my eyes as I was reading them, because one of the things I want to point out that was so moving to me that I just was literally like bawling was that you took that nap with your mother. Mm-hmm. And that ended up being one of the best memories of her last days. And I just found that it was so forthcoming and honest, and yet you wrote this book in 25 days. Did you create just this safe haven for yourself so that you can access these emotions and just be able to come forward? I'm interested in your writing process.
Well, the writing process was a journeyed process. So I actively blog through emotional situations. So one of my, I don't know what the right word is, not technique, but going back to my mission which is that everyone knows how much they're loved and they're not alone. When I'm in my difficult periods, I try to communicate real time as much as possible. Mm. And so much of that story was already written in my blog. So it was not, and it was written within, probably not within days of that story, but I would say it was written within weeks of her dying.
Right. Because it was raw and you felt that.
Yeah. And then it was, it was cleaned up for the book. But a lot of this stuff had already been written to, if it wasn't published on the blog, it was written to my list. So I made a commitment a long time ago to be really transparent with people because I know that's how I teach. It's not how everyone's supposed to teach, but I know the way I teach is I do the hard thing, really messy, really ugly. Mm-hmm. Figure out the easier way to do it and then teach it to you, but make sure you know what the mess looked like so you feel less alone.
Right. Well, you're definitely an inspiration, I will say. I love how you bring up the law of attraction because so many of us were, influenced and inspired also by the law of attraction. I've done tons of vision boards. But you do mention how a lot of the times people get discouraged because they say, well, I'm asking, I'm doing plenty of vision boards. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. So what is the missing ingredient?
Yeah.
Okay. Why can't they get there?
This is the only thing in all of my years of doing all of this where I feel like I had a unique download. This is the one thing.
It is unique. It is unique because I've read it all and this is unique.
Yeah, it's the one thing I teach that I got as a download that was not me taking stuff I learned and processing it and teaching it in a new way. So what I found after my father died, I had taken months off from my business to really grieve and be open to communication so I could talk to him and really focus on that. And all of a sudden, every aspect of my life improved, even in the grief. And as the money flowing into my business versus the amount of hours I was spending, the amount of support I had, the amount of love I felt, the safety I felt just being in my own skin, my body acceptance, all of it was so much better that year. And as I was sitting there, contemplating this and not quite meditating, but sort of reflecting on it, all of a sudden it just downloaded. And what I saw was that there was a field around each of us, an energetic field. And that field was either open and what I call receptive, or you were in some form of resistance. And anytime you're judging yourself, when you're pushing away something, this is why I feel so strongly about you have to let in the difficult emotions.
Right.
Because trying to be positive just is you pushing them away. And so you're adding resistance to that field. And so where I used to think that manifestation, law of attraction was this siloed experience where you're manifesting money. So then visualize money and feel as if you have money, or you're manifesting a new team hire. And so visualize the team hire and what it's going to feel like to have that team member. I suddenly saw that there's no silos. Mm-hmm. Your field is your field. Mm-hmm. And so if you're in lack, because I talk about in the book, at one point we were in over 6 figures of debt. Trying to act as if you've got money is ridiculous. It's just problematic from a psychological standpoint, but it's just pragmatic, like fundamentally stupid, right? But if you have a great marriage, which I did and do, and you just focus on making it even better and better and better and receiving more and more and more of the goodness of that. And in my case, that year, I just worked on receiving more and more and more of spirit communication so I could stay with my father, in communication with my father.
Wow.
It was that wide openness that started to bring in all the things.
Wow.
And that's the missing piece, is that you can be doing all the traditional technical manifestation techniques, but if you are ultimately in resistance, it's going to get through, but it's not going to get through the way it could get through if you learn to receive. And so that's why I founded the Receiving School that year. And that is now what I spend all my time doing, is teaching people how to be in receptivity, how to receive, how to get over the wounds of childhood that told you giving is good, receiving is bad, or selfish, or whatever.
Right, right. You know, this receiving thing comes with the releasing of the resistance.
Yeah.
Right. So what are some ways that we can release?
So the biggest resistance all of us hold, I mean, there's the easier, but I'm going to go deep because you're Jen, and I know that's a flavor that you live life at. Because I have 5 rules of receiving, which are the counterpoints, right, to the resistance. But the biggest one is receive yourself.
Yeah.
And what that means is every single one of us learned to reject pieces of ourselves from when we were little. You could have the most functionally effective parents. You could have the best loving friendships. You could have had all of your resources that you needed to succeed, and you still would have picked up pieces of yourself that were not acceptable to society at large. So, and most of us didn't have the most psychologically healthy parents. You know, we probably had good parents, but everyone has shit, right?
Right.
And so there's things that your family of origin, you just don't do in your family of origin. And so you shove little pieces of it away. And for someone like you, Jen, I'm going to project, because what I remember of you is you weren't like your family, but I remember your dad just like loved how like spirited you were and spontaneous you were. Right. But at the same time, you were always different, and different. You were special, and everyone knew you were special, Jen. But in the world we grew up, special wasn't a thing.
Right. That's right.
And so your family, I'm sure, struggled with, can this girl be as big as she is in the world that we have? And I would suspect along the way, not when I knew you, you were still all of you, as far as I remember. But at some point, it probably required getting just less bright, you know, and less so full of ideas, and less so full of independent thinking, right?
Right.
And for someone like you, it would mean just allowing all your ideas to flow.
Yes.
That would be what releasing resistance looks like. So it's, you just go inside and say, okay, what parts of me have I been rejecting? And now you've done a lot of work on yourself, Jen, I know, but for someone listening that maybe isn't like, they're like, I don't know. I just feel like I spend all my day taking care of all the stupid people around me. What I found is the 3 most common rejected selves are the selfish self, the irresponsible self, and the lazy self. And everyone has all 3 of those going on. So it might look like how you receive your lazy self is, if it feels like you need 2 days to just lay on the couch and watch Netflix and eat ice cream, and you're like, I can't do that because I'm lazy, do that.
Right.
If it's like, oh, I can't go on that trip because it's irresponsible and I have kids, obviously don't leave them alone, but hopefully someone else can take care of them. Go do that trip. So it looks like those kinds of things is you start to lean into the really authentic desires of your soul.
How do we pick this up, this resistance? Probably through, you know, the conditioning of our lives, right? We try to please people and what they expect of us.
Yeah. I mean, it's all from our brain. So your amygdala, each of us has an amygdala. That's the little almond shaped part of your brain that takes care of fight or flight and all the other things that come at, you know, freeze, fawn. And, that evolved, from when we were from thousands of years ago. And it's still, we think we're these modern people, but that part of our brain does not understand how society has changed. And so back then, in order to survive, you had to be included in the tribe, included in the community. If you got rejected because you weren't doing your particular role that you had been assigned, you would be naked alone in the woods with animals without the resources to survive. So survival really meant acceptance. Like a lot of people, when they take, like, especially when they have money issues and they sort of follow the money trail, it's like, oh, it's the homeless woman or man or person syndrome, where you're afraid you're going to become homeless if you follow your dreams or whatever. Right. Homeless isn't the reason people are concerned with that. They don't want to be social rejects. Right. They don't want to be someone that no one wants to be friends with. Right. And so all of it comes from whoever you didn't think would include you. If you had some part of your personality, you then start to shove it away and shove it away. Right. So it's like this self-rejection thing, which you mentioned. I like how you bring up like the shadow side, right? Yeah. There's parts of us that we need to reintegrate. Mm-hmm. And I know personally, like there's so much that I've just started reintegrating, but it took a really long time because I had to deal with like, oh, well, people don't like this and people don't like that and people don't like that. And then I was just like, you know what? I like it. And for you, Jen, I would say it's probably even doubly difficult because a lot of people, I can remember this about you back when we were friends. A lot of what people rejected about you was actually from jealousy. Interesting. Like that's where I, like, even when you were comparing, like, and you're like more like the people that were on the fringe, and people on the fringe are just independent thinkers. I wasn't a naturally independent thinker. So, and nor do I need to be, like, it's just not how I'm built. Right. But I was never one to inspire jealousy in people where you were, and not because you were a mean person, because you just were that bright and different and interesting that at such a young age. And I saw it, your mom, it frightened your mom. I'm remembering a lot of, like, I mean, I'm saying I'm remembering this for the first time. So I might not be getting it 100% accurate, but I think you are. For you, it would have been, it's an even bigger journey because you thought that was problematic for people when yet they actually wanted it and knew they couldn't have it. So that's a whole other layer of stuff. It is a layer of stuff. And it's funny that you're mentioning this because I'm remembering now, you know what I mean? Like, because all of those things were pushed aside when I was, when I dealt with my thing and everyone misinterpreted everything and whatever. But the thing is, like, in the end, those things stay with you. So, when you speak it, I hear the truth and I remember it. And I feel like I have so much stuff to work on now. I swear. I read a lot of spiritual stuff. People, if you are looking for something that will inspire you and open up the door to receiving and also speaking to your spirit guides, please give this book a try. It's Make Space for Magic. Okay. And it's really, really powerful because it's so simple and it delivers so much. So I do want to say that before we wrap up, because I know that this is a short little get together today, Patty. Maybe we can do this again sometime. We will. Yes, absolutely. Because, it's just, there's so much I want to ask you, but I know we need to start wrapping it up. So let me ask you this. If there's a few things that you want to leave the listeners with as to how to begin to access the guidance of their spirit guides, of their ancestors, of their loved ones on the other side of the veil, what can you give them as a piece of advice? Well, it's not actionable, but it is actionable, I think, but it's definitely the thing I want to leave you with. The most important thing is now, I've been doing this business now 12, 13 years and doing readings for people, or where I've done readings in groups of like hundreds, it's not just individual. And the very first thing loved ones, spirit guides, angels say when they come through for someone, especially if that person's never had a reading, the very first thing they say is, we love you and we're so proud of you.
Aww.
Always. And so what I would say is, if you knew that every single being on the other side of the veil, and then every single loved one that's here, but once they cross over, would know that the most important thing that they'd want you to know is that you're loved and that they're proud of you, what would you do differently?
It is a big difference because we doubt ourselves. We live in this like self-criticizing mode, but you know what? It really does come down to this.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Listen, tell us how people could get in touch with you.
Come listen to me on Space for Magic, my podcast.
Yes.
Where I'm usually talking, I try and record them as close to the release date so that the stuff I'm talking about feels like it's the most alive right now. So one, if I'm going through a tough time, you're going to hear about it and you're going to hear how I'm working through it. Or if, I'm seeing a theme in the clients that we're seeing, I'm going to be talking about that. So I would say go to Space for Magic podcast. You can find it like any major podcast app and, get the book. If you're not sure, like if you're just really like, picky about how people write, if you go to pattylennon.com, right at the top, you can download the first chapter and you'll see it's written so that it's easy to read.
Yeah, it flows really nicely.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. Like it's super easy to read. It's mostly story-based. But that would be where I'd say go.
And also, are you still selling your Oracle cards?
I am. Yep.
So definitely people get these too, because they have all. Let me just ask you really quickly before I let you go.
Yeah.
How was this possible? Like, these are pictures. Were you photographing it, or were these bought? Or because they're so beautifully, it's a nice set.
Yeah. Yeah. The deck. I just actually got back from speaking at a big design conference, How Design Live. And like I was showing them that I was using the cards in the thing. And I was like, yeah, I just created these. And I was like, oh, wait, actually my graphic designer created them. Don't you like when CEOs are those assholes that take credit for your work? So it's my amazing graphic designer and I worked on the project together. So I wrote the cards, told her the look and feel I wanted for the images. She went out, we worked together for years. She knows me. She went out, found images. We went back and forth. We started with 60 card possibilities and it became the 44 card deck. But the philosophy behind the deck is the same one that's in the book, which is the deck was created because I use decks all the time. I read with decks, but I find most decks don't have enough cards in there that give you permission to take it easy.
Yes.
And so, and really the how to make space a lot of times comes with making it easy. So this deck is like sort of loaded. It's like, it's loaded for your benefit to give you, a lot of the kind of encouragement that you need to make space for magic.
Absolutely. I feel very, very encouraged every time I come across. When I want that feeling, that's the deck I choose.
I love that.
I'm like, okay, I need a Patty card.
Yeah. So you can get those at pattylennon.com/cards. We are in the process of redoing the website because I've produced a lot of new products. And so the website has not caught up. So you'd probably have to go digging to find it on the website.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is great. Okay. And then how can people follow you?
Oh God. Are we still pretending that social media is a good thing? Anywhere you're on social media at Patty Lennon, you can find me.
There you go. There you go. You could find her in many places: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Look her up. You can follow her. Yes. And she has a lot of different things. She has speaking. She has all different kinds of things. So please, special character, special energy. I'm so thrilled that we were able to connect. And it is that time. You're going to have to go pick up your daughter. So I'm letting you go.
That's awesome. Jen, honestly, I would sit here and talk to you for hours. I'm so bummed.
I know.
But this is June from hell. This is for any parent. This is like, there's just no time Right.
I know tonight after this, I have to go around and take my son to the track dinner. You know what I mean? Like totally get it. But we have a summer coming up. So let's reconnect and we'll do a part 2 and we can continue talking.
And no one listening is going to know who these people are, but you will. So I still see Aud and Lorraine.
Oh,
and
really?
Yeah. So you will come and we will all hang out together.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. We should. Please include me. Please let me know.
I will.
Because now I don't know if I'm connected to them on Instagram. I don't think I am. I was on Facebook. So
okay. I'm going to wrap you guys all in.
Yes. All right. Awesome. Patty, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to catch up and reconnect. This is really, it's just blowing my mind. And I feel like I'm moving forward with this. I feel very inspired. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Jen. Thank you. You inspired me from a very young age. So I'm so happy that I give some of that back to you.
Oh, thank you so much for being on the show. Thanks for listening to Not As Crazy As You Think, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And remember, mental health is attainable for anyone, especially those labeled with mental illness. Until next time, peace out.